In science, we are taught that truth is empirical. Data doesn't lie. A hypothesis is either proven or disproven. I built my life on this principle. At Helios Biotechnologies, my life's work was Project Prometheus, a gene editing therapy designed to target and reverse early-stage cellular degradation, effectively halting diseases like Parkinson's and ALS in their tracks. For 5 years, it was my universe. But I was about to learn a brutal lesson, that the most dangerous variables in any experiment are not flawed methodologies or contaminated samples, but the ambitions of other people. The sabotage I faced wasn't a simple theft. It was a systematic, premeditated dismantling of my credibility, my career, and my very sanity, orchestrated by the last person I ever suspected. Helios wasn't just a company, it was a temple of innovation, and its high priest was Dr. Julian Croft, the charismatic Nobel laureate founder. He had recruited me straight from my postdoc at MIT, praising my unorthodox methodologies and visionary approach. I was his protege, the wunderkind he was grooming to be his successor. Project Prometheus was my brainchild. It utilized a novel delivery system, nicknamed the Edison Protocol, that allowed our CRISPR-based therapy to cross the blood-brain barrier with unprecedented efficiency. The preliminary data was staggering. In primate trials, we observed a 92% reversal of motor function loss. We were on the cusp of human trials. The first sign of trouble was subtle. My requests for specific reagents were delayed. "Supply chain issues," my lab manager, Ben, would say with a shrug. Then my dedicated server space for genomic data was suddenly reallocated to another project led by Dr. Evangeline Reed, Julian's longtime deputy and the company's COO. Evangeline was always polite, always supportive, but there was a coldness in her eyes that I could never quite warm up to. The undermining escalated. During a key presentation to the board, Julian would interject with helpful corrections that subtly misrepresented my data. "Eris's enthusiasm is commendable," he'd say with a paternal smile, "but we must be cautious about overinterpreting these early results." He was reframing my groundbreaking findings as preliminary flukes. The final straw was the anonymous peer review. A damning critique of my methodology was leaked to a major scientific journal, forcing a humiliating, public delay of our first paper. The critique was brilliant in its maliciousness. It twisted my most innovative techniques, making them seem reckless and unsound. It could only have been written by someone with an intimate understanding of my work. I was isolated. My team's morale plummeted. Whispers followed me in the hallways. I was no longer the rising star, I was becoming a liability. The breaking point came late one night. I was working alone, trying to salvage the timeline. I needed a specific compound from the high-security cold storage, a substance critical to the Edison protocol. The log showed it had been checked out under my credentials hours earlier, but I hadn't touched it. With a sinking heart, I accessed the security footage for the vault. The timestamp matched the log. The figure entering the vault wore a lab coat, hair tied back exactly as I wore mine. They used my keycard and passed the retinal scanner. The figure was me. But it wasn't. It was a near-perfect double. The gait was slightly off, the posture a little too rigid. They had gone to incredible lengths, a prosthetic, a stolen keycard, a copied retinal scan to frame me for the theft of my own proprietary compound. This was no longer professional jealousy. This was an assassination. They weren't just trying to steal my work, they were trying to make it look like I had fabricated the entire project and was now covering my tracks by stealing the evidence. The cold, clinical part of my brain took over. This was a problem to be solved. They had underestimated me. They saw a naive scientist. They were about to meet a forensic investigator. Have you ever had your reality systematically dismantled? When every achievement is twisted into a failure and every ally becomes a potential enemy? If you've ever been the target of a smear campaign so sophisticated you started to doubt your own mind, type gaslight in the comments. Because in that moment, staring at my own doppelganger on that security feed, I stopped being a victim of their narrative. I became the author of my own. My revenge would not be an emotional outburst. It would be a meticulously controlled experiment, and they were now my test subjects. My counter-operation, which I named Lazarus, had one objective: to prove not only that Prometheus was real and brilliant, but that Julian and Evangeline were the architects of its sabotage. I needed to turn their own weapons against them. Phase 1, fortification and observation. I knew my every move was being watched. I played my part perfectly, the stressed, paranoid scientist on the verge of a breakdown. I publicly clashed with Ben, my lab manager, over trivialities, further isolating myself. Meanwhile, I built a completely off-grid lab in a rented storage unit, funded by my personal savings. Here, I continued the Prometheus research, creating a secret, parallel data set. I also began my own forensic investigation. I planted a series of digital canary traps, unique, false pieces of data within my research files. I gave slightly different versions to Julian, Evangeline, and Ben. I then set up a hidden network sniffer on the lab's server, monitoring for any of this false data to appear elsewhere. Phase 2, the bait. I created a new, breakthrough algorithm for the Edison protocol, one that supposedly increased efficiency by 300%. It was a masterpiece of plausible fiction, built on a foundation of real science, but with a critical, hidden flaw that would cause catastrophic failure in live tissue. I encrypted this file with a military-grade cipher and accidentally left the password on a sticky note on my desk. Within view of a hidden camera I had installed pointing at my workstation. The trap was set. I was offering them the keys to a kingdom that did not exist. Phase 3, the strike. It took less than 48 hours. My sniffer alerted me. The false data I had given to Evangeline had been used in a grant proposal she had submitted to a European biotech fund. I had my first connection. Then, the jackpot. Ben, my lab manager, was caught on my hidden camera, photographing the password. Hours later, Julian Croft himself accessed the fake breakthrough file from his private terminal. They had taken the bait. They were going to present my flawed, stolen research as their own. The stage was set for the annual Helios Biotechnologies Global Symposium, where Julian was slated to give the keynote address announcing the next great leap in gene therapy. The symposium was a spectacle. The great and good of the scientific and investment worlds were there. Julian took the stage, radiating his trademark avuncular charm. For years, we have dreamed of a true cure for neurodegenerative disease, he began. Today, that dream becomes reality. I am proud to announce the Helios Neural Restoration Therapy, a project spearheaded by myself and Dr. Reed. On the massive screen behind him appeared my work, my Prometheus data, my primate trial results, and the centerpiece, the fake breakthrough algorithm. He presented it all as his own. The theft was brazen, absolute. I waited until he reached the climax of his presentation, the reveal of the 300% efficiency algorithm. "Thank you, Dr. Croft," I said, my voice calm and clear as I stood up from my seat in the third row. The spotlight found me. 1,000 heads turned. "That's a fascinating algorithm, but I believe you've missed a key variable in your calculations." The room fell silent. Julian's smile was frozen. I walked to the stage, holding a data slate. The organizers, confused, handed me a microphone. "You see," I continued, "that algorithm has a critical flaw. When introduced to live neuronal tissue, it doesn't enhance delivery. It triggers uncontrolled apoptosis, programmed cell death. It would kill the patient." I plugged my slate into the presentation system. The screen split. On one side was Julian's presentation. On the other, I displayed the security footage of the doppelganger stealing the compound, followed by the log showing it was done under my credentials. Then, I showed the footage of Ben stealing the password, and the server log showing Julian accessing the file. The room erupted in chaos. "But how could you know about the flaw, Eris?" Evangeline shouted from the front row, a desperate final gambit. "Unless it was your work." I smiled. It was the question I had been waiting for. "Because I designed the flaw, Evangeline. It was a canary trap. And you, Julian, and Ben walked right into it. This breakthrough was a diagnostic tool to identify the thieves saboting my real work, Project Prometheus." I then displayed the data from my secret lab, the real, continued progress on Prometheus, with even more stunning results. I revealed the peer review that had been leaked, showing metadata that traced its origin to Evangeline's computer. The house of cards they had built came crashing down in front of the entire scientific community. Julian Croft and Evangeline Reed were fired and faced multiple lawsuits for intellectual property theft, fraud, and sabotage. The scandal rocked the biotech world. Ben turned state's evidence and revealed the full extent of their conspiracy. They had planned to discredit me, steal Prometheus, and sell the technology to a foreign entity. I, however, was holding the only viable asset, the true, perfected Project Prometheus. The board of Helios, desperate to save the company, offered me Julian's position as CEO and majority control. I declined. Instead, I used the evidence to secure the full patent rights to my work. With the backing of investors who had witnessed my triumph, I founded Thorn Therapeutics. We are now in phase III clinical trials. The first patients are showing miraculous recoveries. They tried to bury me in the shadows of their ambition. They didn't realize they were planting me in fertile soil. My revenge was not their destruction, but my absolute victory. I didn't just reclaim my work. I built my own empire on the ashes of their reputation, proving that the most powerful force in the universe is not just truth, but the relentless will to defend it.